You're listening to Becoming CEO, where we share our journeys as solo founders to becoming the CEO of seven-figure businesses.
And these are our behind-the-scenes conversations as we figure it out, and these are things that most people just aren't sharing. So there's a fire in the business. We're not sure if you're going to die yet. You've, I think, determined that it's okay to let it burn. How'd you build up the skill set to let things burn and watch? Watch this
Honestly,
thing happen inside you.
I think the gift that my business has given me that's been more valuable than any other gift. I mean, more than the experience, more than the money, more than the gratification, more than any of those things has been self-awareness. That to me, like running a business has been like, it's like shining a giant magnifying glass on you, the good and the bad and the ugly, right? Like
mostly bad and ugly, but
well, yeah, there's an upside. But like I know my strengths now better than I ever did. I also know my weaknesses better than I ever did, and you know, that's how I contextualize problems and challenges. Like my worldview, which I don't always adhere to, like in my weaker moments, right? But what I strive to adhere to is that problems and challenges are gifts that are meant to teach you something about yourself that you can learn from. So you can either flee from it and then learn nothing, or embrace it and become better as a result. And so I'll tell you what I learned about myself just in this vein of being patient and letting problems burn, so to speak, right? And this is going to sound like a product pitch. Let me ask you this question first. Have you taken the Kolbe assessment?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay. Interesting. What are you?
5673.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's actually the exact same response that I get from every single person that I tell that.
Yeah. I feel like mine is easier to understand. So for those of you who are listening who don't know what that is, so Kolbe is an interesting personality assessment that, unlike other assessments, it measures your conative ability, CONATIVE, conative ability. That is, it's not like an introversion, extroversion. It's not about, whether you are a certain type of person or, anything like that. It's about how you make decisions.
How you work. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like how you operate, how you process information, how you make decisions. And the idea is that it's pretty fixed. Like this is hardwired into, and you're not going to change. And taking it so for me, that was my monumental leap forward in terms of self-awareness. Like that assessment, and I've done all of them, and they've all been helpful. Yeah. But that taught me the most of what I needed to know about myself in order to operate my business. So quick rundown of how it works. There's four domains, and the idea is that you have like a tank of gas in each domain, and whichever tank has the most gas is like your dominant ability, your dominant conative ability, but they're ranked like 1 to 4, right? So Greg, for example, you were what, 5, 6, 7, 3?
I think it goes to 10, doesn't it?
Yes.
It goes to 10.
Yeah, I mean, there's 4 categories though.
Yeah.
And you get scored in each of them 1 to 10. So
I have them.
5,
I
6,
have
7,
their
3.
website. I have their website up if you want me to read how they define them.
Yeah, go for it.
So the 4 categories are 1, fact finder. So when I said 5, 6, 7, 3, I'm a 5 in fact finder, which is one's way of gathering and sharing information. 2 is follow through, one's way of organizing. 3 is quick start, which is one's way of dealing with risk and uncertainty. And the last is implementer, which is one's way of handling space and tangibles.
So I'd actually love to pull this up to make sure I get it right, but I don't know that I can. I believe I'm a 3, 4, 9, 3. So Greg was 5, 6, 7, 3. I'm 3, 4, 9, 3. What that means is I have one clear dominant ability. Like my 9 is by far my dominant ability. Greg's a little more balanced, which doesn't surprise me now that we talk about it, right? 5, 6, 7, 3. So for me, I'll bring this home.
What was your fact finder? Either 3.
Either 3 or 4.
You said 3. Yeah.
Yeah. I was 3, 4, 9, 3, I believe. So for me, the 9 is the one that I'm really paying attention to. I'm a quick start by a long stretch. Quick start is my
I'm
dominant
surprised
ability.
that you're a 3 or a 4. I think you're higher than that. If you did that again,
Possibly. It might have been 4393, to be honest. I don't remember.
because you make so many database decisions. And so, like, you look at a lot of that stuff beforehand, and that's really where Fact Finder comes through. It's like I'm a 5, where it's like I get just enough into the details that I understand it before. Like, I have to understand enough of the details before I can really do anything. Whereas like someone who's like a 3 is like they just go, like they're not like really basing. They're like, they don't want to look into any of the facts. They don't want to look into any of the details or the data. They just move kind of more instinctually. You seem like a data person. So yeah, that surprises me, but hey, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it may very well be a 4. I'm like trying to log in as
Give
we're doing
yourself
this,
the
and it's
one
not
bump.
working. In any case, the thing that really taught me though about being a quick start, which is either way, like that's my dominant ability, is that one, it's in my nature to want to start things.
Yeah.
So my nature,
which is most, I'd say, entrepreneurs, especially those that would be pegged as like the visionary, the one who started the business. So
Totally.
if that's you listening, you're likely going to be higher on the quick start. Like
Yeah.
I'm a 7, he's a 9.
like I'm not surprised that you're a little bit more balanced, but I'm also not surprised that you're highest on quick start because that's pretty common, right?
Yeah.
So what that teaches me about myself is I'm my bias will always be action, action, action. Oh, there's a problem, fix it. Right? Like what we talked about last episode. Something's going on, fix it. Fix it. Don't ask a lot of questions. Don't need a ton of data. Some of us need more than others, right? But very strong bias to act, 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 act. Which is again, to nod to the discussion yesterday, probably what got us here to a certain extent. Like there was that ability is what enabled us to build what we built, right? But there is a point at which that becomes a handicap.
Yes.
Because if we keep
Yeah, and
doing
so-
new things, we don't have the time to see things through that we're already doing.
Yeah, and based on your comment, if you did not listen to the last episode, you should probably pause this one and go listen to that one because we're picking up where we left off. This is kind of part 2 of a conversation around having patience, letting things play out. Sometimes things that are uncomfortable burning inside the business that you know need to be fixed, but you also need to let it play out a little bit longer, which means you need to be comfortable with experiencing some of that discomfort.
And I'll tell you where, like, to your point, you were surprised because you're like, oh, but you seem really data driven and you make decisions based on data. I think that's a learned behavior. So I think what I've learned from taking Colby and just running the business and making lots of mistakes and having the battle wounds to show for it is I've learned, still learning, frankly, when to trust my instinct and go with my quick start instinct. Like when I intuitively know what to do, then I just do it. And then I've learned when to step back and try to gather more information, look at the data more closely to inform a decision. I think for me, that's been the big learning is like knowing when to act and knowing when to pause and being able to discern what the right move is in the situation. But knowing full well that my bias, like that's harder for me because my bias is quick start.
Right. And so, I mean, I think back to the point of, self-awareness and like, as you're growing your business, I think being an entrepreneur is probably like the best self-development course you can ever sign up for, which hopefully is helping you create more self-awareness as a byproduct. But you alluded to that, and we're looking for like, well, what are things that you've done to be more self-aware? I think obviously take the Colby test, because to know how like your default mode of operating can kind of maybe open your eyes to, hey, whoa, like I'm really just jumping really quick into this with not a lot of info. Like that'll maybe explain some of your behavior. And obviously once you understand where that's coming from, because that's how you are wired, you can obviously then catch yourself in those moments, especially if it's maybe, not an opportunity or not the right time to quick start.
And there's a lot of, I think, really useful takeaways too in terms of strengths. So one thing I learned about quick starts is we tend to not need to prepare a lot for things.
I love freestyle.
It's not a coincidence that Greg and I hop on here once a week and go, all right, hit record.
What are we talking about? This? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
let's go. I
figure
could
it out.
totally,
Hit
I could
record
totally
tonight.
talk about that for days.
And to be honest, like I saw my procrastination and my like always leaving things to the last minute as a flaw until I did Colby, and it reframed it as a strength that I'm just able to think on my feet, and actually I'm better. I'm better when I'm thinking on my feet than when I'm overly prepared and scripted, which I thought was a flaw and probably gave myself grief for it. It completely reframed the whole thing. Now I'm able to harness what's actually a strength and not feel bad about it.
Yeah, I think most entrepreneurs are.
By the way, I'm
And
4393. You were right. I actually am higher on FactFinder. I finally found
Okay.
it.
Yeah, it makes me feel a tiny bit better, but I still think that that's off by 2. So this probably has not just tied to entrepreneurs, but I think it shows up a lot more in entrepreneurs, is that I've really lost my train of thought when you threw out that score. So I'm just going to carry on to self-awareness because you derailed me. So I think Colby, like you said, you understand the working on your feet. Oh, I know where I was going with that. It was that that laziness you talked about, procrastination. I think most of us operate well, like with our back against the wall to some degree. Like, and back to, I like having my back against the wall when, I know the building isn't going to burn down, but like there's pressure to get something done, like a deadline. The deadline is, hey, we have our, our client intensive next week, and I've been like creating stuff for it the last couple weeks, and it's like I'm getting so much done, and I got a lot more done earlier this time than last time, but like it's still like you're still cutting it a little close, Greg. But like it's the quality I also see is still high in my opinion. Like, oh wow, this is actually one of the better things that I've put together, and I did it in less time, and I could have still started earlier, but I almost operate better that way. But even if it's not to my own standard, while I'll be disappointed, like the client probably won't know. Whereas, to the concept of this whole 2-part episode so far, it's if there's something burning and the whole business is going to go down, like I'm not sure I want my back against that sort of wall. But there are, like you said, fires inside the building that some of which you got to let burn out, and or maybe they are actually down the street. Do you feel like that? Like, you just operate with your back against the wall?
Yeah, and I think like the other big learning for us has been having people on the team, myself included, like embrace the way they operate and know that about one another. So everybody in my company knows I'm a quick start. Everybody knows that Ahmed is like kind of erratic and always has like if you need an idea, you go to Ahmed. Go have a brainstorm call. He will fill you with ideas. Mm-hmm. Right? Like that's what he's good for, basically. Right? But he's also really bad at following through on things. Don't give him a project to own. Everyone knows, like, Ahmed is where projects go to die. Don't give him a project. Right? Like you got to manage him. You got to get him involved when you need him, and then you got to get him out of the way so you can see it through. Right? And I know this about other people on my team.
You want plenty of projects to start.
Exactly. Right. And it's like, it's fun. It's like the other day, somebody started a Slack channel. Right. Mm-hmm. And while they were typing out instructions for how to use the channel and the purpose, I had already jumped in and sent 5 messages in the channel. And everyone's laughing because it's like he couldn't even wait 30 seconds for instructions on what this channel is about. The moment I saw a Slack channel, it prompted a thought, and I was in there firing away messages.
What was the channel called?
So it was Group Call Clips. And so it was the way that we're going to, like, they had a whole system for, like, when you get off a call, if you want to clip something for either client training, for the portal, or for marketing, you provide a timestamp. And I just started just dropping things without the instructions. Like, they had a whole form that was ready to be filled out, right? And I just dropped, like, 5 clips, right? That's me in a nutshell. But then the flip side is I also know about my team. I know how they operate. I know their Colby score. I know the way they tend to process information. So I have, a bunch of follow-throughs on my team, right?
Yeah.
And
Which is
there's
typically like your number 2, your operations people.
and there's conflict there, like healthy conflict, tension.
Oh, yeah.
I want to do
yeah.
things. They say no. I'm like, what the hell? What do you mean no, right? Like, why do we need to go through, like, my frequent grievance is like, why do we need 5 meetings to make a decision on something? And their grievance is, why do you make decisions from like the hip? Like, can you think things through for a change? And we end up being balanced.
You're like, 3
Right?
meetings
And so-
it is.
So the three, literally, right? So the learning there for me has been, first of all, my way of doing things is not the best way of doing things. Different people have different abilities, different ways of thinking, different ways of processing information. They're all good. Combined together, we're stronger than any one individual. And secondly, don't surround yourself with people who are like you. Because if I had a company full of quick starts, oh boy.
Well, so to bring this back to the self-awareness piece, right? Because like, you just said, that's not the best way to do it, right? And I think, historically I would have said stuff like that too. And it's like, okay, well, best compared to what? Like it might actually be the best for how you and your team operate, right? It might not be best for how me and my team operate. It might not be best compared to somebody else. But like if it's best for you guys, like the ability to also understand those sorts of things, like irrespective of that situation, like what works for other people might not be what's good for you.
Yeah.
And like to be aware of that and be like, all right, like I love, like here's a real time example. So we have daily sales huddles minus on Fridays. Like our advisors both also meet, but I don't attend the Friday sales huddle. And in my opinion, I think it's really exhausting and unnecessary. I was just talking to another person who manages 8 different sales teams, and her philosophy was, I like one sales huddle a week, and I just hire people that are self-motivated and perform. And like, she's like, I'd rather be on calls selling than on even a 15-minute huddle. Like, I'd rather be doing sales activities. Like, give me one meeting. And then she's like, for one of our clients, we do 2 a week. And I was like, like the world that I've been exposed to is harping on it has to be daily, and which is why I adopted it, right? And I saw improvements, but I'm also, it's like, okay, well, for everyone that's saying that, there's obviously someone that's finding success not that, because maybe that's not for them. And I'm actually really intrigued by those, I guess, people that are like, oh, it's black and white, it's got to be daily. Or it's like, all right, well, like we don't meet with them at all and we're killing it, so like clearly it can be done. It's like, all right, like what is best for me might not actually be what is being told or advised by, say, someone else. So I think I look at things more like that now.
I think sports is a good metaphor. I like hockey, so we're gonna go with hockey. Okay.
Okay, I don't really know much about hockey, but
Well, this applies to I think any team sport, right? Like you could be. Actually, I'm gonna use my daughter as an example. So my daughter's 10 years old. She plays hockey, and she is so much better in practice than in games. Hope she's not listening. She's so much. You watch her in practice.
That's awesome, by the way.
Well, yeah. She in practice, like she's fast, she moves, she can shoot, like she's really confident with the puck, like she's really good in practice. But practice is generally like a one-person show, right? Like it's you're doing the drills on your own. There's some like team elements, right? But it's not like a game where the game is a team sport. You got to play together with each other. There's no focus on the individual. There's a focus on the team, right? And so she plays for a couple of different teams, and so like she's learning how to take her individual capability and have that mesh with the team. And every time you play with different players, it's a different learning experience, right? I think that's a perfect metaphor for business, because I know what I'm really good at, and you know what you're really good at. But when we mesh with a team, they have strengths, they have weaknesses, right? They have things that they're good at. They have challenges of their own, and you have to kind of learn, how are we going to work together? What's like the perfect mix, the perfect strategy, the perfect method, routine decision-making protocol, etc. for this team. And mine might be very different from yours, might be very different from somebody else's. And that's part of the journey here, is finding out what that is.
Yeah. This went way different than I was expecting. This
Usually does.
Conversation. So I guess to maybe circle back on some of this though, like there's a fire in the building or somewhere. We've established that at certain levels, as you kind of scale up and you have a team underneath you, you sometimes or often rather need to let things play out, let other people possibly make some mistakes so that they can learn and grow and better support you long term to your big picture goals. Are there things that you do to kind of keep your quick start at bay? For the lack of a better.
By the way, like I'm laughing at the irony of this whole episode because I'm a 3 on follow through, you're a 6 on follow through, and every episode, what happens is my quick start will go in like a million different directions, and then you will always bring it home at the end. You will always be like, okay, so back to the topic. It happens if you pay attention every single episode.
I'd have to go back and look. That's interesting.
Yeah. But good
answer
on
the
you.
question.
Otherwise, yeah. All right, coming back.
This episode
it's
has
funny
45 different names.
I have to find, so personally, I have to find ways to keep myself focused. And so I would say the way we do that in a nutshell is planning. We have a annual planning routine. We have a quarterly planning routine. And we have a monthly planning routine. And what that does is, and we have a bi-weekly as well. Depending on the team. Every team's a little bit different. So what that does is that allows me to be my quick start in the planning process and to be very iterative and very idea focused and creative. But then when we're in between planning milestones, like when we're in a sprint, so to speak, to shut that part off and just go. And there's controls around that via the planning process. The team pushes back on me all the time. And I'd say that's what's worked for me, is just putting those controls in place through the planning process. And I think just also having learned the hard way that I can be very disruptive and it could derail a lot of things. And I have to really kind of hold myself back as a result.
Yeah. Your answer is better than mine. I guess better relative to what? But yeah, planning definitely helps. Our meeting cadence, I think, also helps because there'll be, like, for example, there were a couple things that I was like, oh man, like I should go talk to Lisa about this. She's like my number 2. This was like end of day yesterday. And I was like, do I drop this bomb right now in a Slack channel, or do I add it to our Monday meeting agenda and like let it marinate for myself over the weekend? Because I'm sure if I look at it again as a line item on this agenda, it's going to be probably approached with less emotion or, whatever, less, anxiety or whatever, like caused me to be like, oh my God, I need to get this over there now. And like in hindsight, it's like, it wasn't urgent. I would have possibly derailed where, what she was working on, it probably would have led to me having to work longer yesterday than I would have anticipated. And it's like, nothing's going to break or no one's going to die or nothing's going to, like, it's like more of a strategic thing. So it's like, all right, I'm putting it on the list to talk about in the future on this meeting that we know happens every week. And so I find like, hey, something happens that I want to tell the sales team. Oh, I'll just add it to the agenda for the next sales meeting. Like, if obviously it's urgent, I would go into Slack and be like, yo, let's hop on a quick call. But I do a lot of stuff like that where it's like, okay, can this wait till the next time that I'm supposed to be speaking to this person? It's almost always yes. And so I add it. And I think the conversation around whatever that thing is always healthier by having it wait. But where my initial thought of when you're like planning, I was like, for me, it's like I just work less. Like by what I mean by that is, like I mentioned earlier, like I'm going mountain biking after this. Like it's like the version of tying my hands behind my back. Like, well, I can't disrupt if I'm out there. So what I've So that's like one way of like, forcing function, change my environment where I'm not even in a place where I can really disrupt other people, and trying to find more opportunities for that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, an activity that is me not working, but having less things that I need to get done in a week. Like, for example, like I always have a big 3 for the week, and I got them all done on Wednesday. And there's been other availabilities for me to add stuff to that list, but it's like me squeezing something in that is already planned for next week, like, or even the following week. Like, is that actually the best use of my time, or like honor that extra space and like go stretch, go take a walk, take the dog for a walk, like, get some fresh air. And I feel like some of those things I'm like trying to do better of, which is definitely still weird. I'm still struggling with it because it's like a little bit feel guilty that I should be doing something. And like I posted, I was like, hey guys, like have a great weekend. I'm recording a podcast and I'm gonna go on my bike because it's supposed to snow. And everyone was like, have a great weekend, have a great weekend, have a great weekend. And I was like, ooh, that feels like I got some guilt right when they said that. I'm like, oh, should I be doing something? But like I knocked out everything that they needed me to knock out this week early. And so reward myself.
All of this flies in the face of hustle culture.
Yes.
There's so many people in your feed, in my feed, in the listeners' feed that are telling them that they just need to work harder and harder and sometimes they call it work smarter and they mean harder.
Yeah. And then they're like, or do both.
and yeah, I mean, that just really hit me because I struggle with this too, right? Like when we've talked about this in previous episodes, like I will have periods of time where I'm lighter in terms of work, and then it's just a matter of time before guilt sets in. And I feel like I need to be doing more. And then I go through a season of doing a lot, and then it kind of ebbs and flows. But I feel like we were just exposed to, or still exposed to so much like dogma around hustle, do, action, that it's hard to just unlearn some of that stuff and like rewire the way you think about the relationship between action and results.
Yeah, I posted, it was yesterday, the other day on Twitter, like that, because I think most entrepreneurs are in some way, shape, or form competitive, whether they want to admit that or not, with themselves and with their peers. Alex Hormozy says like something along the lines of like, you don't have a problem with someone else winning unless they're winning better, more than you are. Like, you're just so exposed to it, right? Like you see, like you said, you see all this stuff. And I did this post and I was like, wanting to is a good enough reason. Like sometimes I'm like, people are like, well, why do you want that? I'm like, because I want it. And then they'd be like, but why? I'm like, because I just effing want it. That's why. I don't need more of a reason than wanting to. It might be illogical to you. That's fine. It actually might be even illogical to me, but I can't deny the fact that I want X, Y, Z to happen. And so there, I want it. And that's enough. Like that's enough. But I think the problem with that is, and I actually just went through and I'm in the process still of unfollowing a lot of people, unsubscribing to YouTube channels, Twitter, Instagram, some of which are even friends and people that sometimes inspire me, but sometimes also I'm just like, if I have a negative thought about myself from reading something that they posted, mute, like, it's like a go-to. And I'm like unfollowing people like, do I really need to learn more from this person at this point? Or would it be better and healthier for me to kind of, not be exposed to it? And I'm really, because I do end up wanting things that other people might want that I don't, I might want to want those things, but I don't actually want them. And that comes from me just, consuming and seeing all these things in my face. But I'm self-aware enough to know that I want to want that. And by seeing these people, it makes me want to want that. So I have to force myself to unfollow. unfollow. Hey, I respect the hell out of this person. They were great in my life at one point, unfollow. I could always come back and refollow them if I want to, like when I'm a bit more in control of myself. But I realize that I'm that way.
Maybe another topic, but I just don't consume anything. That's my fix to the problem that you presented.
That's why you don't respond to my text messages. That was one thing I was going to say. I was like, there's days where I text you and I'm like, how the hell does this guy not respond to my text?
Sorry.
Like,
That's because my phone's put away somewhere. And
it's like 3 days later. But no, it's also, I'm inspired by it too. Because like, I think I'm sometimes like, I feel like I have to respond to certain people. And as of recent, I'm like trying to get better at like, I don't owe this person a response at all. And so like, I'll just delete it. And there's a bunch of emails that like, hey, do you want this? Blah, blah, blah. Can I do this? I'm like, delete. Like, I don't have to respond. So yeah, kudos to you because you're probably focused on something that's more important than whatever I was probably saying.
Yeah, but with social, like to your point, I feel the same way. You know, like there's so much noise out there. It's not meant for me. It's not helping me. If anything, it triggers, negative ideas and thoughts. So I've just stopped consuming. The only thing I consume now is Twitter. And even that, I think it's pretty sporadic. I'm mostly going there to post and to tweet and not really to read. I'm actually concerned about that, to be honest. The more I've gotten into Twitter, the more I'm consuming. I think it's actually causing problems. I'll probably delete that app off my phone pretty soon. But I'm frankly just trying to consume as little social media as possible and as much. Like I'm reading and I'm listening to audiobooks. That's my main consumption is in book form. And then the odd time something's truly useful on social, like somebody will share it with me. Like you'll share YouTube videos with me, right? I know if something's really useful, it's going to find me somehow. Someone's going to share it. Someone's going to give it to me.
Totally. Well,
that's not what this episode is about, but that's the
final words on self-awareness and how you can use that to navigate the moments in your business where you got to just let it burn or play out or wait longer.
My final word on this is like, if all you get out of your business is more self-awareness, it's worth it.
And here's mine, which I'll steal from Miss Rachel Rogers, who wrote the book, I think We All Should Be Millionaires or something like that. She just got interviewed on a podcast that I listened to. And she said, more hobbies, less offers. More hobbies, less offers. And I was like, hell yeah. Like, stop creating more extra stuff that makes your business more complex or possibly creates more problems and go read a book, go take a walk, go do something that is not business related. Like, get a damn hobby.
We should talk about this on another episode because on the flip side, your boy Alex Hermosi has no hobbies. All he does is work.
Oh, yeah. For sure, 100%. He works out, but yeah.
That's an interesting topic. Let's talk about that one.
Yeah. I also not sure I would, in the place to say he's my boy. I do love his business content. I do love his business content. I would say, like, you're my boy because we talk all the time. I've hung out with him once, twice. But yeah, I do love his content. But yeah, I very much like he doesn't have kids, there are certain things that I just can't relate to when it comes to him. And so like you have to kind of take some of those things with a grain of salt for sure, but still respect the hell out of him.
I know people that have worked with him personally. Yeah, I know people that have worked with him personally and he's told them like our life, me and Layla, like this is our business, it's our life.
100%. Yeah, he's very open and transparent about that because he's got self-awareness. Yeah.
So people look at him and go, well, he sold his business for $50 million. Why can't I do that? Well, are you willing to do what he's done to do that is an important question.
Yeah. And
anyhow, all that's for another day, Greg.
I'll answer that for you, and the answer is no. Until next time, guys, have a good one. Find a hobby.
See ya.